A very good afternoon to you. You're watching Ebru TV Business Insight with me, Nina Shaban. It is Tuesday, the 27th of February 2018, and I shall be taking you through our 30-minute show. Now, today in particular, we want to take a look at Malta's drought, and in studio, I shall be joined by the National Drought Management Authority CEO, Mr. James Oduor. Drought conditions expected to persist into 2018 have left 3.4 million people food insecure. Up to 3.4 million Kenyans are facing hunger as a result of prolonged drought, which has affected food production. Now, millions of animals, both domestic and wild, are also suffering devastating effects of delayed rains. Now, the government will suspend 3.8 billion shillings in its response to address drought between now and April. A huge portion of this amount, 2.5 billion, will be spent on food and cash transfer programs in the drought heat parts. But the question that many have is, what is the lasting solution the recurring drought effect to the country? And joining me, thankfully, in studio is the National Drought Management Authority CEO, Mr. James Oduor, to give us these answers. A very good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right. Thank you very much for gracing us with your presence. Let's just get right into it. Why is it that Kenya does not have a lasting solution when it comes to this recurring drought?
Thank you very much. Actually, Kenya has a lasting solution.
All right.
We now have a strategy. We are calling it Ending Drought Emergency Strategy. It started about 5 years ago, 2013. As part of our Vision 2030, MTP2. We are going to MTP3. It's a document that was prepared, endorsed by the national government, county government, and other stakeholders, and they really give the direction on what we are supposed to do for the next 10 years at least, if we have to end the worst of the sufferings of the negative impacts of drought. It's already being implemented by all relevant stakeholders. As you know, these long-term sustainable development issues, they take long. They are very expensive. Sometimes they are slow. So maybe right now, impacts are not being seen. Many people may not appreciate what is happening. However, if all stakeholders come together, national, county government and others, and we fast-track those activities, and we follow that direction, because that is what the government takes leadership in, then definitely within a very short time, we can start seeing the impacts being reduced. Even now as we speak, we've seen past droughts, 2009, we have seen before then, we have even 1999, 2001, we have seen 2011, and recently this drought that is continuing now, 2016 up to date. In fact, in some of these areas, if you are to go on the ground, compare what we are seeing now with what you have seen in the past, you can notice that there's a difference.
Right.
The impacts may not be as they used to be, but still, we are not yet there. We still have to do a lot to reach where we want to reach.
All right. So according to what you're saying is that the plan has been there. You have, the government has a lasting solution, but clearly we are still suffering from the drought.
Yes.
So where exactly are the obstacles? Where are the loopholes?
No obstacles, no loopholes. We've given a 10-year plan. We have to implement it in 10 years or even more. So we are not yet there. We have not completed the number of years that we require for us to start seeing meaningful impacts.
So where we are right now?
Where we are right now, the way we have implemented it, I would say it's less than even 40%. So you can see, at 40%, you may start seeing a bit of impact, but the real impacts can come when you have implemented maybe 80% and above. So it's there, but unless we implement substantial part of it, we have only implemented a little part of it. Unless we implement substantial part of it, we may not see the impacts that we desire. But even then, the situation varies from county to county. Even the implementation varies from county to county. There are some counties, in terms of implementation, they have done more than others.
Of course.
And right now, even as we speak, they may not be suffering as much as the others. The other day, somebody was talking from Kwale, I think one of the leaders there, and he said clearly in Kwale, they are not where they were a few years ago. Of course, they have done a lot of water projects. They have done a lot of irrigation schemes. They have come up with some livelihood diversifications. They have done a lot of livestock projects. And therefore, at present, they are not suffering the way others are suffering. Take, for example, even Turkana. Turkana, in the past, used to be the first in the news. In fact, people used to know that there was drought by hearing the news from Turkana. You can see other counties are suffering, but Turkana, although the situation is also getting worse, is not the first to suffer right now. They have also done a lot in terms of irrigation, in terms of water facilities, and in terms of other things.
So what exactly are Turkana and Kwale counties doing? Because you've said it varies from county to county.
Yes.
And so what exactly are Turkana and Kwale county doing that the other counties are not doing?
Yeah.
And what policies are there to make sure that every other county takes the same direction so that the people in that county do not suffer?
The strategy is there, but how to implement the strategy depends on the resources the county can mobilize on their own, the other support they can get from the national government, the other support that they get from other stakeholders like the NGOs. When you put that one together, is the NGOs supporting, the other people supporting, the donors, they cannot do the support uniformly everywhere. But what these counties have done, for example, in this document, the framework is that we have a whole pillar dealing with peace building and conflict management. The peace building, conflict management that come as a result of competition for grazing resources. Probably they have done a lot along those areas. And therefore, that competition and those conflicts are now going down. There's also a huge pillar of infrastructure, which means a bit of the roads, a bit of electricity, a bit of irrigation schemes, a bit of other health-related infrastructures, agriculture-related infrastructure. Probably they have also done a lot along those areas. I'm just giving some examples.
Yeah, I understand.
There's also the pillar dealing with sustainable livelihood. They have done a lot about crop production, irrigation. They have done a lot about livestock, pasture, and control of livestock diseases, and maybe other things. There's also a whole pillar to deal with human capital, which means you have to do a lot of things on health and nutrition and also education. They have also done a lot of things along those lines. All the counties don't have to do the things the same way.
Yeah, because they're different.
They are different and they have their priorities.
Yeah.
Some may concentrate on pillar 1, some may say priority in pillar 2, pillar 3, something like that. Yes.
All right. And well, the latest news that we have when it comes to Martyrs drought is that the Tana River County has received 78,000 bags of drought pellets worth 24 million to be given to weak lactating cows as a drought mitigation measure. So from where you sit, how is this going to better the situation?
Yes, right now when we talk of interventions going on, these are short-term interventions to counter the situation it is now. Different from what I've just said. What I've just said is long-term.
Long-term,
Something you do now, then in so many years if drought comes, the impact will be minimized. But what we're talking about is right now, you save the situation now in terms of loss of livestock and human beings. So giving the livestock feed and the pellets is one intervention in livestock. The livestock, you can intervene by giving the feed to the livestock that remain at home. You can also intervene by disease control because livestock are converging in a few areas with the pasture and water. You can also do offtake by then give the communities money instead of the community losing them. So what you are mentioning is just one of the many activities that are going on in livestock, and also other sectors, also interventions are going on. Yes.
Of course, and there's also the pastoralists in Kajiado County who are reducing the number of cattle they keep and rearing more goats and sheep, which better withstand drought and diseases.
Yeah, now that's a better strategy. Changing the species, livestock species. Maybe you go for more goats, less livestock. That is also like a long-term sustainable development. You know, like the goats and the sheep, they are called browsers. They don't need grass or those pastures. They can feed on shrubs. They can feed on maybe small leaves from trees, something like that, which means increases their chances of survival. They are not also as heavy feeders as livestock. So if you go for that, most of the livestock now is sheep and goats. We call them short. your chances of losing them are less than somebody who has got a lot of strength.
Yeah.
So it's one of the strategies actually to minimize the future impacts of drought.
Right.
It's like what I've been saying, livelihood diversification.
Yes.
You can either go for sheep, goats, cattle, or go for other things, totally different, like business.
Yes.
like maybe some of them can go to irrigated agriculture. Yes, you diversify. Because if you rely only on one livelihood, like you rely only on cattle, or rely on livestock, or rely on crops, when that livelihood is hit by drought,
clearly
you don't have any other source of food or cash, then you are finished. And that has been the problem, because in most of these arid and semi-arid areas, livelihoods are not diversified. People depend on very few livelihoods. Like some in marginal agricultural areas is marginal agriculture, crops. In the pastoral areas and agro-pastoral area is the livestock. And when drought hits that livelihood, then they're finished.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, I'm sure you have you've seen and heard about, or rather, you're part of the Kenya suspending the logging for about 3 months. From where you sit, how will this suspension help, considering you cannot say that in 3 months we'll have our trees growing very fast and our country will be back to receiving rains? So what should we read from this?
Thank you very much. Let me admit from the beginning, I'm not an expert in that area.
Yes.
It's not also my area. And therefore, if I start talking along those lines, I may be misleading, or I may not have facts and figures. Okay. But just as a layman, you know when you have trees, and trees conserve the environment, and all the factors, that then if you get, first of all, you get the rains, and then when you get the water, it is not just lost in the soil, then the rivers also survive, something like that. And if you stop the logging, it's not something that will bring results tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. You are doing something for the future, so that in the next 10 years or 15 years, those places will have recovered and the water can start flowing normally the way it flows. So you do something now, you have to stop it now. If in the next 10 years you want things to be okay. If you don't do it, then it can go out of hand. But again, once again, I'm saying I'm not an expert here. Maybe you can call the environment guys one day, then they'll elaborate more on this.
All right,
point.
and we shall be doing that, Mr. Oduor.
Thank you.
And now, what advice would you have for this in the agriculture business, and agriculture being the economy driver in Kenya during this particular situation?
During this particular situation, I think we are responding to the effects of drought. The problem is already with us. You cannot do much. You just have to give people food. You just have to do something about giving water, to do something about livestock, do something about malnutrition, education, something like that. But in terms of agriculture, now you look at the future. To say, what are you supposed to do in the future? And there are so many strategies, things that you can do. Where there's high potential, in rain-fed agriculture, you can use all the technologies available to improve production as much as possible, where there's potential. Where there's no potential, where there's rain-fed agriculture, marginal areas like some of these arid and semi-arid areas, you can still produce a lot of crops through irrigation, through other technologies. Where also you can manage with irrigation, you can still do it. Food security is not only crops. Food security is big. It is livestock, it's everything, it's money, it's trade. If you don't have enough, you can also even import. It's a big picture. But when we look at production alone, there are so many things in Kenya that we can still do right now to increase that production. So we go for technology, the right seed, planting at the right time, pest control, avoiding a lot of post-harvest losses, and the ministry, the concerned ministry actually has got those strategies. So when I'm talking of ending drought emergencies in the next 10 years or so, you go to that strategy, you'll also find what they want to do in terms of crop production, to enhance production in the next 10 years. Those strategies are there, the details are there. maybe it's only the time that we don't have to discuss them in detail.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Oduor. We do appreciate you coming to give us more insight on what is going on in Kenya. Currently, we're suffering a drought situation. And Mr. James Oduor is the CEO of the National Drought Management Authority, just here to tell us that everything is going to be okay. They have a strategy that started 5 years ago, but this strategy is a 10-year strategy. And of course, everything needs to go slowly for it to have a proper and a successful implementation. Well, we thank you very much. Have a lovely afternoon. My name is Nina Shaban. I'll see you tomorrow for more Business Insight.
It's shorter than I thought.
It's shorter?
I thought it was going to take half an hour. Was I too fast?
No, it was well.
It was okay?
Yes, I appreciate it.
Thank you.